Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Rob Wilcox, or Rob with 2Ds. I am an SE for Nutanix out of the Houston commercial space. Today we're going to talk about desktop as a service with Nutanix Xi Frame. The goal here is to show you in just a quick few steps how to set up desktops from the admin side and deliver quickly. One of the benefits of the Frame platform is that we can deploy very quickly and give you the ability to get desktops out to your users as fast as possible. So we're going to do a quick whiteboard. I'll introduce the management plane and some of the facts about where your workloads can live in Frame. And then we're going to hop into a pretty quick demo where we go through setting your sandbox, setting capacity, allowing users access, and then ultimately delivering desktops to those end users. What makes Xi Frame unique? Well, a couple of things, but namely, the Frame service exists in the Nutanix Xi Cloud. This is a cloud service developed and hosted by Nutanix in the Nutanix data centers, and it allows you to talk to the public clouds and deploy into any public cloud using all of our standard API-driven, software as a solution mechanisms and IAM roles. You can also deploy on-premise with Nutanix AHV. So what does that look like? Well, it looks something like this. Let's go get some drawing tools. That helps. So we're going to draw our control plane. And we have a lot of things that live in Xi, but we're going to talk specifically about Frame right now. So we have a control plane as a service and Launchpads. This is what the end users will actually access. And we'll draw our Azure over here. We'll draw our AWS over here. And we'll draw GCP here. Yeah, I did my bubble out of order. Oh well. And finally, we'll draw an AHV cluster over here. This would be on-premise. So to better signify the on-premise, let's draw a firewall. Okay. So once you register with my.nutanix.com and you get your Frame subscription, you will set up your customer hierarchy, and it's all just kind of led. You just answer the questions and you get your initial account set up. And once you're ready, you can pick your cloud of choice to deploy. And when you do a deployment, we are scripting via API and inserting our Frame services into your cloud. So this could be your, again, your cloud of choice. So let's say you've got a VPC here already. This is your VPC. We're going to deploy that in there. And this is going to include our CCA, SGA, some components that are required to make the service work. And we do all this automatically for you as long as the role that you specify has the right access, and we have all of our help documentation to lead you along the way, and we have the best services in class to get you set up, which is the recommendation, get you up and standing quickly. But for the sake of this conversation and demo, we're going to simplify, right? So we've deployed to AWS. We can do the same thing over here to Azure. Again, we're talking their language. This is all API driven. We're a software company, right? So we can do whatever we want because it's software. Okay, same thing for GCP. Down here on premise, it works a little bit differently. You're going to have your firewall, and it's going to talk to the control plane as well using AHV. We are going to have some Frame services over here. That handle the deployment of the workloads. So you configure and you deploy this CCA appliance from the customer portal. You just pull it down. Actually, you can do it from within Prism now, which is really slick. So from Prism, you deploy Frame. It's going to install these components for you. And you register the CCA up with the Xi Cloud. It connects all the dots. And now you're able to use the management plane up here, our control plane, and start to deploy workloads. And it knows that your workload lives wherever it lives at the account level. So there's one more thing I want to put over here. Let's not forget that, what's a good color? I'll use red again. And I'm running out of room. We're going to just put IDP. That's a D and this is a P. An identity provider. We are going to need an identity provider to figure out who you are and direct you to the right location. So once you're authenticated via an IDP, we're now going to know, okay, this individual is authenticated with Frame. They have an account here. Their workload is over in Azure. Their workload is over in AWS. And that's just where we're going to deploy the desktop instances. So we're going to kill that for now. Just wanted to specify that we do not talk native Kerberos or LDAP because it's the cloud. We want to have a better solution. We want an identity manager. Azure AD, Duo, Okta, et cetera. Those players, OAuth 2, SAML 2, you're good. Okay, got that out of the way. So again, we've deployed the Frame services to your cloud of choice or on-premise. What's nice about Frame is it's not an or, it's an and. If I want to have some users in one cloud because it's cost effective and a different one because it's more cost effective, or maybe it's a regional issue or compliance issue or whatever it is, you have the option to maintain everything from the Frame portal from Xi and have the workloads live wherever you want. And again, that's the flexibility of desktop as a service is I can deploy wherever I need depending on my scenarios. So once an end user, he's going to have a laptop, right? Yay, we got a laptop. Once an end user, let's change colors just so we can see what's going on here. What color are we using? We're using purple. I like purple. So end user is going to authenticate. He's going to authenticate to his IDP, DP. I don't know why I always do it backwards, right? You're going to log in, authenticate to your IDP, and really it's going to, I'm doing it a little bit backwards, but you identify, you hit your Launchpad here. It's going to figure out what account do you have access to in our hierarchy. Okay, cool. I have an account that lives up here in AWS. These services know where you need to go. It's going to talk to the Frame service at that account level in AWS and say, okay, this guy is on non-persistent. He gets this size instance, spin it up. And I can also have some more waiting for additional users so I don't have to wait for it to boot. And that way, it's returned to him. Here's the beauty of it. This is all HTML5 based. The management plane and the end user experience is HTML5 based, meaning I can use it from any web browser, HTML5 web browser. Anything modern, great, does it. So now I've done this communication via the control plane. I'm done with that. Now I'm talking directly to my cloud of choice using my HTML5 browser. We do have a thick client for certain scenarios where you might need a little more horsepower, you might need more monitors, you might need a specific frame driver, a Twain driver for scanners, biometrics, et cetera. But for all intents and purposes, that's it. The end user hits a Launchpad, Frame figures out what they have access to. There's some other options in the user experience they click, and now they're presented their desktop. And we figure out where that workload lives. Again, if it lives over here, cool, spin it up. If it works down here, cool, spin it up. Granted, down here we're going through our firewall through a reverse proxy. Cool. So that is the Xi Frame control plane in a nutshell, and the fact that I can move workloads around between clouds, and I can assign them to users based off of whatever memberships they have using an identity manager and our user setup. And it can be on-premise, it can be in the cloud, it can be a combination of the two. It's the flexibility, right? So the cool thing is it's very fast. So the next part of this video is going to be a quick demo where we spin up the subscription. We're going to go into the admin experience of just kind of the top 4 steps you're going to take to deploy into the cloud. Now, there's many other things. There's a lot to get into, right? But I just want to show you how simple it is to get a desktop to an end user using the admin experience. So I wanted to just show you what the my.nutanix.com part looks like. Pretty simple. Free login, get it set up, and now you have this cloud services section. Well, for Xi Frame, we're going to click launch. From there, you're going to be asked some questions on setting up your subscription, setting up billing, and then, what cloud you want to deploy to, follow the prompts. Again, we have services that can help you along the way with deployment, especially if you've got a larger scale deployment, a lot more complexity. But just for this demo, I just want to show you that you click that button and you answer those questions, and now we're going to deploy into your cloud of choice. So my cloud of choice for my demo is AWS. So I have one account because this is my demo account. I've got to be a good corporate citizen, right? Anyways, we have customer, organization, and account in our hierarchy. This is important. The customer would be your main customer entity, corporate entity, what have you. Organizations would be how you might break things down to business units, regions, something that makes sense to your environment. And then an account is where you start to grant majority of the access to the end users. That's also where your sandbox, aka golden image, lives. So once you have that set up, we say I've got one of everything right now. I've got, Nutanix, whatever the org is, because in my account, here's my Rob Wilcox non-persistent account. I can see that it's in the AWS Ohio data center region, and when it was created and what capacity I've turned on currently, and the status, active, inactive, what have you. Again, high level. So admin experience. Let's get into it. I'm going to click my account, and this is what you're going to see initially. Details of your account. You can see I've got it on AWS. I'm running Nutanix Frame. Here's where my data center is. Yay. What pools I have in their current state as far as instance size. I can see a bunch of active session information if I have a bunch of sessions running right now. Because it's a demo environment, most of my stuff's turned off, and I also want to show you the steps to turn it on. So there's a couple key things we're going to do to deliver to your end users. On the left, there's a bunch of options here. We're not going to get into all these today. Please contact your sales team to get into the speeds and feeds and weeds of what else Frame can do, because it's quite powerful. But I just want to show you specifically Sandbox, Capacity, and Launchpads. For the sake of the demo, let's just pretend users are set up, right? We've got our IDP set up, it's all tied in. I've got whatever group membership, we've got all that taken care of. I don't want to dive into that today, but that's a prerequisite. So let's assume that's done. So we're going to do Sandbox, Capacity, and Launchpads. Sandbox. This is your golden image. So you can see right now, my sandbox is stopped. Basically, boot it up, make your changes, turn it off, and publish. When I publish, I'm automatically going to take a snapshot of that instance. Meaning, if I need to revert, let's say I push a bum Windows patch because that's never happened, right? Or a piece of software or whatever security change, whatever happens that maybe the experience has negatively impacted my end users, I can revert back. I can restore, delete, rename. I can create a manual backup. This capacity set on the golden image is for you, the admin, to have a wonderful experience maintaining your golden image. This is only going to count when it's booted up, right? So if you don't want to deal with slow, sluggishness, and all that fun stuff, hey man, give yourself as much horsepower as you want. You can see here I've got an Air 8 gig, which if you hover over any of these things, and then in capacity I'll show you some more, you'll see our nomenclature, which is Air Edge Pro. And you'll be able to see AWS, cloud provider, what instance type in their nomenclature it is, RAM, CPU, GPU, okay? So there's a couple places to see that. On the right side, you can see all the applications I have installed in this image. At any point in time, if I need to onboard anything else that didn't automatically get picked up by Frame, you just right-click that executable in Windows and say onboard to Frame, and poof, it'll show up in this list. And then from here, I can, delete it from Frame. Just I don't want to present this, or maybe I need to do something specific with Changing working directories, I need command line arguments. Maybe I need to call a network-based utility server that has a license file or something. Like, you can do kind of the same things you would do if it was a physical desktop. So again, that's the sandbox. I'm not going to turn it on right now. It takes a minute. But the idea is this is where you do your changes. One thing I want to point out, if I have end users running, let's say I have 200 end users running, and I can see them under the status, active sessions, or under summary, active sessions here. I've got a bunch of end users running, okay? I don't want to impact them because I made a change. Great, I'm not. We're not going to impact existing sessions that are running. Anybody new will now get the newly published session as they join and create a new session. They boot up a new instance. Those running one now, when they log off and that session is terminated, they will now get the new one. Granted, you can tune this because we have control over all kinds of wonderful session things and activity timeouts, all that stuff. Again, very similar to what you do in a lot of other, VDI or desktop virtualization applications. That's Sandbox. The first thing I'm going to do is create my image, install my applications, get it ready to deliver, and then publish. Then I'm going to set capacity. This is important. We need to tell Frame how much of what size instances do my end users have access to. And you can kind of override this in a couple areas, but I'm going to keep it simple. Here you can see I have 4 different instance types. Air being the lightweight, Edge being kind of like, kind of your knowledge workers, and then Pro being, all the horsepower. And at any point in time, again, I want to see what this means. I can hover over this. This is a G3S extra large instance type with 32 gigs of RAM, 4 vCPU, and 1 GPU. Depending on my subscription type, I can add additional instances here, or I can trim them down. This is where you have the flexibility to control your spend in the cloud. If it's on premise and if you have all the capacities planned out on your Nutanix cluster, you can do whatever you want. Set it to maximum. You're not having to worry about that time, that hourly rate of paying for the compute. Maximum number of instances. This is the maximum number of instances I want to run for whatever I'm going to deliver. So for my Pro, maybe I only want a couple of these things. They're expensive. I only have a couple of users who ever need that kind of horsepower. Great. Set that at 2. Minimum. Minimum will always keep whatever your number you set running. Meaning if an end user hops in, there's a instance booted waiting for them. They don't have to wait for the power up sequence and all the other things that we would do with the Frame agent to prepare the session. We streamline it, right? It's ready and waiting. And buffer is somewhere in the middle. Buffer is basically saying if you have some stuff running and I'm expecting more users to log in, keep this many extra ones ready to go. And that way you can improve the experience, but also kind of trim down and control your cloud spend. On top of that, with active capacity, I can actually specify specific timing, days of the week and time that I want to override what I did on my default capacity. Maybe, I want to set during 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Maybe when I expect a certain group of users to log in, I want to set minimums to let them log in without having to wait. But then the rest of the day and evening, I don't want to have that same challenge. And I can do the same thing with buffer instances. So for this demo, let's just leave all this alone. We're going to go ahead and set some capacity here. So we're going to say, I want one of these guys. We'll say minimum 1 just so it'll start booting one up for me. Cool. Let's go to Edge. We'll spin up a couple of these. We're going to click our save. Error 8s. No, I don't want error 8s. I want them for these guys. We'll spin up more of those. And let's just set up a buffer. All right. So now I should have instances starting to power up. Well, cool. Now I have the image created. I have capacity created. So I now can deliver Launchpads. This is what your end user is going to touch. This is how they get into it. Now, this is one way. There are other ways, but this is the standard way with Frame, again, via a browser to get to a desktop or an application. You can see here I've got desktop. I've got a couple different Launchpads I've done for my own demos for customers. To be honest, there was rhyme and reason, but I've bounced around a bunch, so there's not. But, it's my demo environment. I can do what I want. So I've got a desktop. You can see I've selected the desktop type. I have turned on Air 8 gig and the Pro 32. You can turn these on and off with the slider. That's just specifying, again, what instance size can they use in that Launchpad. And I put a background on it because cool. Also at the Launchpad level, you can override session settings. And we can also introduce some advanced integrations, such as PWA links that you might want to embed as a progressive web app to some other dashboard or portal or what have you, so that the end user can click on that icon and get the frame presented to them in a more seamless fashion. Identity manager, size, instance pool, you got control. That's a desktop. Let's go look at something like design and stuff. Yes, we'll go and leave. So here, this is an application. Now, application, this is not a multi-user vApp or published application style delivery. It is still using a VDI style backend, meaning once I click an application from the Launchpad, I'm going to spin up a desktop. However, if I'm that same user and I'm using any of these other applications that are in that Launchpad, I'm going to use the same desktop. I'm not booting one up for every application that I touch. That would be pretty silly. So here for this one, none of these things require a ton of horsepower. I got some 3D stuff in there. Maybe that's a bad example, but follow on. Let's just go ahead and turn on these two instance sizes. Actually, we'll just turn that one off. I don't care. We'll save it. I've now set the capacity. Now I'm ready to go. So Sandbox, Capacity, Launchpad. We're ready to go. Let's go click on my Launchpad here. This is going to be the end user experience. Again, as an admin, I can flip back and forth between the admin dashboard and a Launchpad. Yay, admin power. Here's a desktop. Down here at the bottom, I can select what size desktop I'm running. So if you give your end users options, maybe you've got somebody who 50% of their time they're redoing, knowledge worker stuff, but the other 50% they might need horsepower. Well, I'd rather pay for 50% of GPU expense than 100% of GPU expense, right? So they can pick and choose. So we're just gonna go ahead and say the Pro, so we can just see what that looks like. Recording a demo and something comes up that you got to take care of quickly. So I started my desktop, had to kill the session or my recording and go handle something and come back. So here I am. So the difference is if I spun it up new, it powers on, I get to the desktop, you're in the desktop. I had to log out or actually disconnect the session. So I have this session is running at the bottom. So again, it's not going to power on a new one because it hasn't met any of those idle timeouts from the main settings before. I'm just going to click on resume and it's going to pick up where I left off. So we're just going to pretend I hopped into my session. So here we go. Here's a desktop. So I apologize for that. But carrying on, you can see I have a Windows 10 desktop. I'm going to keep getting that warning because it's a demo and there's some software that I can't seem to remove. But you have all the applications installed. I don't know why Audacity's on there. Cool, let's render some audio. But the case in point here is to show you the end user experience. And from here, we can also do a lot of neat stuff. We have control over what cloud storage services. So we have Google Drive, we have OneDrive, we can turn them on, we can turn them off. Clipboard sync, virtual keyboard, printing. We can allow or disallow depending on how locked down we need the session to be. So you can see we've got Word, Office stuff, great. It's a Windows desktop. There's a lot to get into regarding what your end users need access to. I can show and hide the session stats. I can show and hide the actual session timer. So if an end user is having an issue, they can tell me what kind of time it was around if we're doing some troubleshooting. Show hide stats will show you the session information here, frames per second, which is nice. Because we can also tune by changing resolution or specifying under settings here our bit rate and grayscale or color scale and what have you to, again, tune if I'm working over some kind of low bandwidth environment. One of the key points of the Frame environment in general is the frame remoting protocol. It's more akin to a Netflix, Hulu streaming type of protocol, meaning you can deliver a high fidelity over, kind of dodgy bandwidth, and give a really positive user experience. It's a web native technology. We're not trying to take existing video technologies, your ICAs, your RDPs, and make that a web thing. This is a ground up protocol that's built for this function. So we can close the session, which will actually close, log out, terminate, that VM in non-persistent world, or I can disconnect, meaning I can hop off, and as long as I'm disconnected within my timeout settings, I can get back into my instance and leave where I left off. So maybe I went to the restroom or lunch or a meeting and had to come back. So we're just gonna click that. We're gonna say click now, and that's what that looks like. If I go to one of my other environments, or Launchpads, I'm sorry, you can see I've got these things booted up. So let's just go look at, I don't know which one of these will be a lightweight. I think Audacity should be a lightweight, just to show the speed. It's gonna now start the session and present me the application. And it's all, again, HTML5 browser. So you can deliver to your end users a couple different ways. And then there's all the, like I said, API-driven stuff and PWA links and session links and some other advanced things that we can do as well. But the purpose of this demo is to show you how quickly we can spin up VDI environments. You create your subscription, you tune your sandbox, you set your capacity, you configure your Launchpad, and now you're delivering the experience to your users. Poof, here we go. Right? So let's go ahead and kill this. Let's go back to my admin dashboard. And now I'm back in my admin dashboard. You can see under status, I have these instances started and what their status is. So this guy is rebooting here. That's my large one. This one has stopped. I've got these guys waiting because of the capacity settings I had. Here's my T3 mediums. I set, I don't remember, 4 or 5. You can see it's running and waiting. So that's it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for looking at Frame with me and seeing how quick and easy it is to deploy to your end users. And whether or not your cloud providers, Azure, GCP, or your on-premise environment with Nutanix AHV, your admin experience is the same. You're using our management plane to do exactly this. And again, there's a lot more to get into, but for just, again, the demo to show you how simple it is, I just wanted to showcase those 3 things: Sandbox, Capacity, Launchpads. A little flavor of the end user experience. So feel free to reach out to your sales team, and if you're not sure who that is, look me up and I can help you. But ultimately, we're glad to show this product to our user base and get everybody on board, because there's a lot of benefits. Thank you again for your time, and have a good rest of your day, night, week, whatever.